March 2021. Great Basin Desert, Nevada. 8 soldiers manning a forward observation post stop responding to communications. 7 days of silence. When we arrived at their camp, everything was there. Tents, weapons, gear, half-eaten meals. Everything except the soldiers themselves. This is a story about absence, about finding a place where people simply stopped existing, about boot prints that end mid-stride in the desert dust. And this is what really happened. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button to support Warborn Shadows, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I still see those boots. 8 pairs of them, arranged in neat rows outside the command tent, like their owners had just stepped out of them to go inside. Laces tied, soles barely worn. The left boot of the nearest pair had its tongue folded at an odd angle. The kind of thing that happens when you slip your foot out in a hurry but plan to come right back. Nobody came back. My name is Thomas Keene. Major, United States Army, Recovery and Search Operations Unit. 22 years of service. I've pulled bodies from helicopter crashes in the Hindu Kush. I've processed casualty sites after IED strikes. I've walked through villages in Syria where every living thing had been dead for 3 days in the August heat. I know what death looks like, smells like, feels like. I know the weight of human absence. What I found in the Great Basin Desert wasn't death. It was something worse. It was interruption. I'm 45 years old. My wife, Sarah, died 6 years ago. Cancer, not combat. My daughter, Emma, is in her junior year at Portland State, studying environmental science. She wants to save the world. I used to think I understood what needed saving. I've been sleeping 4 hours a night since March 2021. Every time I close my eyes, I see those boots. I see the coffee mug on the folding table, still half full with a skin of condensation on the inside of the ceramic. I see the pen lying beside an unfinished log entry, the ink still wet enough to smudge when Sergeant Danner touched it with his gloved finger. I see the boot prints in the dust that stop mid-stride, like someone had been lifted straight up out of their own footsteps. The call came through at 0530 hours on March 19th, 2021. I was in my quarters at Fort Irwin, going through morning reports with bad coffee and worse news about budget cuts to training operations. My XO knocked twice and entered without waiting for acknowledgement, our signal for priority tasking. Sir, we've got a non-responsive OP in Sector 77 Delta. Forward Observation Post Cisco. 8 personnel. No contact for 7 days. 7 days. In modern military operations, 7 hours of communication blackout triggers alerts. 7 days meant something catastrophic or something deliberately hidden. Neither option was good. Equipment failure? I asked, already knowing the answer. 7 days meant someone had tried to make contact, tried to send runners, tried alternative communications. Negative, sir. They have satellite uplink, encrypted radio, 2 different frequency backups, and personal cell phones. Last check-in was routine, weather normal. No distress calls, no emergency beacons, just silence. I pulled up the location on my terminal. Great Basin Desert, Nevada. Middle of nowhere, which was the point. The OP was a temporary installation, part of a training exercise monitoring program. At least, that's what the file said. 8 soldiers with rotating shifts, observing and recording training operations in the desert corridors. Standard deployment. 2 weeks on site, resupply every 4 days, check-ins every 12 hours. Who authorized the delay? 7 days was unconscionable. Someone had sat on this. My XO's expression told me what I needed to know. Above our grade, sir. Orders came down this morning. Assess and recover. Expect mechanical failure or medical emergency. Discreet approach. Minimal footprint. Discreet. The word every soldier learns to hate. Discreet means something went wrong in a way that makes people nervous. Discreet means lawyers are already involved. I selected my team personally. Sergeant Paul Danner, combat engineer, 32 years old, methodical as a Swiss watch. If there was evidence at the site, Danner would find it and document it properly. Lieutenant Rachel Knox, forensic officer with civilian medical examiner experience before she enlisted. Knox was a skeptic, the kind who needed proof before forming conclusions. She'd push back on assumptions, mine included. We rolled out at 1100 hours in 2 vehicles, a Humvee for transport and a transport truck for recovery of equipment and, if necessary, remains. The drive took 6 hours across increasingly desolate terrain. Paved road gave way to gravel, gravel to dirt track to nothing but GPS coordinates and desert hardpan. The Great Basin Desert isn't like the Mojave or the Sonoran. It's high desert, cold at night, sparse vegetation that looks dead even when it's alive. Sagebrush and salt flats and mountains that seem close but never get closer. The kind of landscape that makes you understand why people see things in the desert. Your brain fills the emptiness with anything it can manufacture. We reached the OP's coordinates at 1847 hours. The sun was dropping toward the Shell Creek Range, painting everything in orange and purple. Temperature was already falling, 65 degrees, and dropping fast toward an overnight low in the 30s. I saw the camp from half a mile out. It was intact, tents standing, no damage, no burn marks, no blast patterns. The observation tower, a simple elevated platform with ladder access, stood undisturbed. Solar panels glinted in the dying light. The perimeter was marked with standard tactical barriers. Nothing collapsed, nothing torn, nothing disturbed. "Sir," Danner said quietly from the driver's seat. "That's not right." He was correct. If there had been a medical emergency, we'd see signs of evacuation attempts. Gear scattered, vehicle tracks, something. If there had been an attack, we'd see defensive positions or damage. If there had been an accident with the tower or equipment, we'd see something. We saw nothing wrong at all. That was the first indication something was very wrong. I raised my binoculars and scanned the camp systematically. Left to right, grid pattern, the way I'd done 1,000 times before. Tents, 4 of them, standard issue, properly staked. Command tent larger than the others. Observation tower, intact, ladder showing no damage. Vehicle, present, a Humvee parked beside the supply tent. Perimeter, undisturbed, no breach points. No people. "Knox, you seeing this?" "I'm seeing a normal camp with nobody home," she replied from the back seat. Her voice had that flat quality she got when something didn't fit her internal logic. No visible damage. No signs of emergency. No signs of life, Danner added. We approached slowly. I kept my sidearm ready, though I didn't know what I expected to use it on. The camp perimeter was 50 meters out. At 40 meters, I could see details. Folding chairs arranged around an unlit fire pit. A cooler sitting closed beside the command tent. The observation tower's equipment bags hanging from their hooks. At 30 meters, I saw the boots. 8 pairs of them, lined up outside the command tent. Not scattered, not thrown, arranged. The way soldiers arrange their boots before entering a tent, keeping the dirt outside, keeping the sleeping space clean. Muscle memory and training. Unconscious habit. But nobody had put them back on. We stopped at the perimeter. I made the call, Standard procedure for potentially hazardous sites. Full protective. Assume environmental contamination until proven otherwise. We donned respirators and gloves. Knox pulled out her handheld atmospheric tester, checking for carbon monoxide, natural gas, anything that might have incapacitated 8 soldiers simultaneously. The device beeped green. Air quality normal, no toxins, no radiation above background levels, no biological agents detected. "We're clear," Knox said. But she didn't sound relieved. She sounded more confused. We entered the camp on foot, weapons ready, moving in a tactical formation despite the obvious absence of any threat. Training overrides instinct. We cleared each tent systematically, enter, scan, confirm empty, mark. Tent 1. Sleeping bags arranged neatly on cots. Personal items on makeshift shelves, books, photos, toiletries. A deck of cards mid-shuffle on a footlocker. 2 cell phones on charging cables, batteries dead. No signs of disturbance. Tent 2. Same condition. Clothes folded, 1 cot with sheets pulled back, as if someone had just gotten up. A pair of reading glasses on a pillow. Everything normal except for the absence of people. Tent 3. Identical story. Routine interrupted. Tent 4. The supply tent. MRE boxes stacked properly. Water containers full. Medical supplies untouched. Ammunition inventory looked complete. Not a single item missing. The command tent was last. I pulled open the flap and stepped inside. The radio equipment was still on. Standby lights glowing green. The generator outside hummed quietly. Fuel tank still half full. Someone had set it to economy mode. On the folding table that served as a desk, I saw the logbook lying open. Beside it, a pen. Beside the pen, a coffee mug. I stepped closer, my boots silent on the tent's floor tarp. The logbook was open to March 12th, 7 days ago. The last entry was incomplete. 0340 hours, routine check. Perimeter secure, weather clear, observed unusual atmospheric. The sentence ended mid-word. The pen lay beside it at an angle, as if it had been set down casually, not dropped. The ink wasn't smudged, just stopped. I looked at the coffee mug. The contents had evaporated down to a dark ring at the bottom, but condensation was still visible on the inside of the ceramic. In this dry desert air, that meant the coffee had been relatively fresh when it was abandoned. Hours, not days. "Major," Denner's voice carried from outside the tent. His tone made my spine straighten. "You need to see this." I exited the command tent. Denner was crouched in the dust between the tent and the observation tower, his camera out, taking photos of the ground. Knox stood beside him, her face pale behind her respirator. "Boot prints," Danner said. 8 different treads. I've mapped them. They move through the camp normally, walking patterns, standing patterns, standard patrol routes. But look at this. He pointed to a clear print in the dust. Size 10, military issue, deep impression suggesting full body weight. The print showed a left foot in mid-stride, weight on the ball of the foot, heel lifted, a walking step, frozen in time. "Now, look ahead of it," Danner said. I looked. There should have been a right footprint, completing the stride. There wasn't. The dust ahead was smooth, unmarked, undisturbed. The footprints simply stopped. Not like someone had jumped, no scuff marks, no deeper impressions from launching. Not like someone had been dragged, no slide marks, no disturbance, just stopped. "I've found 6 more like this," Danner said quietly. Different locations around the camp, all the same pattern. Mid-stride termination, no continuation. Knox spoke, her voice tight. "People don't just vanish mid-step. There has to be an explanation. Wind could have erased. The prints behind these are still clear. Danner interrupted, which he never did. He was rattled. Same dust, same exposure, same conditions. The prints stopped because the people stopped making them. Right here, right in the middle of walking. I looked around the camp again with new eyes. Everything in place. Everything normal. Everything except the people who had been here. 8 soldiers who had been eating, sleeping, working, walking. 8 soldiers who had stopped existing in the space between one footstep and the next. The sun dropped below the mountains. The temperature fell 5 degrees in as many minutes. In the sudden twilight, the camp looked even more wrong. Lights should have been coming on. Soldiers should have been finishing dinner, starting evening watch, settling in for the night. Instead, there was only silence. The kind of silence that has weight. "Bag everything," I ordered. "Full documentation, photos, measurements, samples. I want every piece of evidence cataloged and..." My radio crackled to life. The voice that came through was clipped, professional, and cold. "Recovery team, this is oversight. We have your position. Remain on site. Support is inbound. ETA 40 minutes. Do not remove any materials. Do not communicate this location. Acknowledge her to us." I hadn't called for support. I hadn't reported findings yet. But someone was monitoring us. Someone already knew what we'd found. Or what we hadn't found. "Acknowledged," I said, because refusing wasn't an option. "Standing by." The radio clicked off. In the silence that followed, I heard Danner chambering around in his sidearm. Knox was staring at the horizon, where a dust was rising in the distance. Vehicles approaching fast, too many of them, moving with purpose. "Sir," Knox said quietly, "who did you tell we were coming here?" "Nobody outside command structure." "Then how do they know we found it?" "Found what?" I wanted to ask. We hadn't found anything. That was the problem. We'd found nothing at all. The dust cloud grew closer. I counted at least 6 vehicles, maybe more, unmarked, moving in tactical formation, the kind of response you send when you already know what you're dealing with. I looked down at the incomplete boot prints in the dust, at the unfinished log entry, at the coffee mug with its ring of condensation, at the boots arranged so neatly outside the tent, waiting for feet that would never return to them. 8 soldiers had vanished from this camp without a trace, and someone had been watching, waiting for us to discover it. That's when I realized. We weren't the first recovery team. We were just the first one they'd allowed to see the evidence before they buried it. The vehicles arrived like a surgical strike. 6 black SUVs and 2 transport trucks, no military markings, no government plates. They formed a perimeter around our position within 90 seconds of arrival. Men emerged wearing civilian clothes, tactical pants, dark jackets, no insignia. But their movements were pure military. The way they deployed, covered angles, communicated with hand signals. These weren't contractors. These were active duty operating under civilian cover. The man who approached me had gray at his temples and eyes like an accountant reviewing a failed audit. He didn't offer his name or rank. "Major Keene, I'm assuming operational command of this site. Your team will proceed to the northern vehicle for debriefing. All documentation, photos, and samples will be transferred to my personnel immediately." Under whose authority? I kept my voice level. Danner and Knox had moved closer to me, an unconscious defensive formation. "Authority sufficient to have you court-martialed for insubordination if you ask that question again." He said it without heat, without threat, just fact. This site is now classified. Your team has stumbled into an ongoing operation. The observation post personnel are part of a separate matter that doesn't concern recovery operations. 8 missing soldiers don't concern recovery operations? 8 AWOL personnel are being handled through appropriate channels. Your concern is equipment recovery, which is no longer necessary. We'll handle it from here. AWOL, absent without leave. The official story was already written. 8 soldiers had somehow simultaneously decided to abandon their post, leaving behind their weapons, their gear, their phones, their boots, leaving behind footprints that stopped mid-stride in the desert dust. The gray-haired man gestured toward the vehicles. "Major, now." "We had no choice. You don't win arguments with people who arrive in unmarked vehicles with unlimited authority." We moved to the designated SUV. The interior smelled like new leather and gun oil. A younger operative, maybe 25, military haircut, dead eyes, sat in the driver's seat. He handed us each a tablet. "Non-disclosure agreement. Read it. Sign it. Don't ask questions." I read it. 3 pages of dense legal language that boiled down to, "You saw nothing. You'll say nothing. Violating this agreement constitutes treason and will result in federal prosecution and imprisonment." There was a separate clause about discussing the matter with family members. Another about psychiatric counseling being considered a breach. They'd thought of everything. "This is illegal," Knox said quietly. "You can't classify an entire incident retroactively and—" "Lieutenant Knox." The driver didn't turn around. Rachel Marie Knox, age 29, forensics specialist, previously employed as civilian medical examiner in Portland, Oregon. Mother's name Patricia, father deceased. One sister Jennifer, teaching elementary school in Eugene. You're 3 years from qualifying for full pension. Sign the document. The threat was implicit and absolute. They knew everything about us. They'd known before we arrived. This wasn't hasty damage control. This was planned containment. I signed. Danner signed. Knox stared at the screen for 30 seconds before her hand moved to comply. "Smart decision," the driver said. "You'll be escorted back to Fort Irwin. Your official report will state equipment malfunction, site abandoned prior to arrival, no personnel located. Investigation ongoing through alternative channels. You're restricted from discussing this matter with anyone, including each other. Understood?" "Understood," I said, tasting bile. We were driven back in silence. 6 hours through darkness, arriving at Fort Irwin at 0400 hours. We were separated immediately, sent to individual quarters with instructions to report for regular duties in the morning, as if nothing had happened. As if we hadn't found a camp where 8 people had stopped existing mid-stride. I didn't sleep. I sat in my quarters with the lights off, staring at nothing, replaying everything. The arranged boots, the unfinished log entry, the boot prints that ended like someone had been plucked from the earth by invisible hands. Unusual, atmospheric. That's what the log entry had said before it stopped. The last words written before 8 soldiers vanished. What had they seen? What had been unusual about the atmosphere? I pulled up the weather data for that grid square on March 12th. Official records showed clear skies, minimal wind, temperature consistent with seasonal norms. Nothing unusual at all. But someone had seen something unusual enough to start writing it down. 3 weeks passed. I filed the official report as instructed. Equipment malfunction, abandoned site, no personnel located. The report was accepted without question and immediately classified. I never heard another word about OP Cisco or its missing soldiers through official channels. But I heard plenty through unofficial ones. I started drinking more. Not enough to affect my duties, but enough to quiet the questions that wouldn't stop circling my mind. Emma called twice a week. I told her everything was fine. I was lying to my daughter, adding that to the list of things I couldn't forgive myself for. April became May. I thought about requesting transfer. I thought about early retirement. I thought about those boots every single night. Then, in early June, I received a message. It came through an old Signal account I'd set up years ago for secure communications during deployment and hadn't used in 18 months. A message from a number I didn't recognize, sent at 03:47 hours. Cisco wasn't the first. Meet me. Lone Mountain Tavern, Tonopah. Friday, 1800. Come alone. Delete this message. I should have reported it immediately. I should have ignored it. I should have done anything except what I did. I went. Lone Mountain Tavern is the kind of place where nobody asks questions because everyone there has answers they don't want to share. 40 miles south of Tonopah, Nevada, on a highway that sees more dust than traffic. The parking lot had 6 vehicles when I arrived at 17:52 hours. I'd driven my personal truck, a beat-up Ford Ranger that wouldn't attract attention. Inside smelled like decades of cigarette smoke, despite Nevada's indoor smoking ban. Dark wood, darker corners, a bartender who didn't look up when I entered. 3 men at the bar, nursing beers. 1 couple in a booth pretending to care about each other. And in the back corner, alone, a man in his 50s wearing a windbreaker and a 1,000-yard stare. He saw me and nodded once. I approached carefully, keeping my hands visible, aware of every exit. "Major Keene," he said as I sat down. "Thank you for coming. I'm sure you think this is monumentally stupid." "I'm sure it is." Up close, I could see the details. His hair was gray-brown, cut military short but growing out. His hands had scars, old ones, the kind you get from working with equipment and weapons. His eyes had that particular exhaustion that comes from years of carrying classified knowledge. "Who are you?" "Name doesn't matter. What matters is what I know about Sector 77 Delta, about OP Cisco, about the 11 other sites where personnel have vanished over the past 14 years. 11 other sites." My chest tightened. "You're telling me this has happened 12 times? 13, actually. But the first one was written off as a training accident. Avalanche in Colorado. 6 soldiers buried, never recovered. Except there was no avalanche. The snow hadn't moved. They were just gone. And the convenient explanation was accepted because nobody wanted to ask the hard questions." He pulled out a phone, a burner probably, and showed me a photo. A military camp in snow-covered mountains, tents intact, gear present, boot prints in the snow that stopped mid-stride, exactly like what I'd seen in the Nevada desert. "Who are you?" I asked again. I was part of the program, 26 years working for a project that officially doesn't exist. I helped monitor sites, I helped write the cover stories, I helped make families believe their loved ones had died in training accidents or gone AWOL or any other convenient lie that kept the truth buried. He put the phone away. I stopped being able to sleep about 5 years ago. Started having nightmares about the things we were monitoring, the things we were feeding. "Feeding?" His expression went dark. "You saw the camp, intact, normal, like someone had pressed pause on 8 lives simultaneously. You want to know what did that? So do I. So does the project. That's why they keep sending teams into those grid squares. They're not observation posts, Major. They're bait." The temperature in the bar seemed to drop 20 degrees. Bait for what? Something that's been in that desert for a very long time. Something that wakes up periodically and takes people. Not kills them, takes them. removes them from existence so completely that it's like they were never there at all, except for the evidence of interruption, the boot prints, the half-finished meals, the log entries that stop mid-word. I thought about the logbook. Observed unusual atmospheric. What did they observe? I asked. You'd have to ask them, but you can't, because they're gone. Like the 6 in Colorado, like the 4 in Montana, like the 9 in New Mexico, like the 8 you found. He leaned forward. The project has been studying this phenomenon for 3 decades. They know it's real. They know it's repeatable. Happens in specific geographic zones on a semi-regular cycle. They know it takes military personnel preferentially, though civilians have vanished too in earlier incidents. What do they think it is? Officially, an atmospheric plasma phenomenon with unknown properties. Unofficially, nobody has the first goddamn clue. It doesn't read on equipment. It doesn't leave physical traces. It just takes people and leaves their lives behind like empty shells. Why are you telling me this? Because they're sending another team. OP Cisco is being re-established. 8 more soldiers being assigned to the same grid square, same protocols, same monitoring equipment. They're going to vanish too, and the project will document it and learn absolutely nothing. And 8 more families will be told lies. I felt rage building in my chest. When? 2 weeks, and I can't stop it. I tried going to oversight, tried going to Congress through back channels. The project has too much protection, too much political insulation. People who ask questions get reassigned or silenced. I got out before they could do either to me, but I can't stop what's coming. Why tell me? What am I supposed to do with this? He stood up, dropping cash on the table for a beer he hadn't ordered. That's up to you, Major. You can do nothing and let it happen again. Or you can do something and probably destroy your career and maybe your life. But at least you'll know you tried. Wait. I reached for his arm, but he pulled away. Don't contact me again. Don't try to find me. If they catch us communicating, we're both finished. Everything I've told you is deniable. I'll deny it if asked, but it's true, all of it. He turned toward the door. OP Cisco, 2 weeks, 8 more soldiers, same fate, unless someone stops it. He walked out. I sat there for 5 minutes, my mind spinning through implications and options and consequences. The bartender finally looked up. You ordering, or you just taking up space? I ordered whiskey, drank it, ordered another. 8 more soldiers, 2 weeks. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Knox's contact. My thumb hovered over the call button. We'd been ordered not to communicate. Breaking that order would confirm we were problematic, would paint targets on our backs. But 8 more people were going to die, or worse than die, going to vanish so completely their families would never have closure, never have answers, never have anything but official lies. I made the call. Knox answered on the second ring. This is a mistake. I know. Listen anyway. I told her everything. The meeting, the 13 incidents, the bait, the program. When I finished, there was silence on the line. Jesus Christ, Knox said finally. If this is true, it's true. I saw the photos. I saw his face. He was telling the truth. Then we need evidence. Real evidence. Something undeniable that forces the truth into the open. Her voice shifted into analytical mode, the scientist overriding the soldier. We need to go back to that site. Before they re-establish the OP, we need to document everything they're not telling us. That's insane. The site is under surveillance. Going back without authorization is exactly as insane as sending 8 more soldiers to vanish. Knox interrupted. You called me, Major. You made this my problem too. So what are we doing? Following orders and letting it happen? Or breaking every rule we have and maybe stopping it? I looked at my reflection in the bar mirror. 55 years old. Gray hair, lined face, eyes that had seen too much. Emma was depending on me to be someone she could be proud of. Sarah had raised her to believe in doing what was right, even when it was hard. 8 more soldiers. 2 weeks. We're going back, I said. We're going to document everything. And we're going to find out what the hell is really happening in Sector 77 Delta. Good, Knox said. Because I think I know someone who might have answers. A climatologist at NOAA who got fired 3 years ago for claiming she'd detected unexplained atmospheric distortions in the Great Basin. She tried to publish her findings. Got shut down hard. If anyone knows what unusual atmospheric phenomena look like, it's her. Find her. Get what she knows. I'll coordinate logistics for the site return. Major, when we do this, there's no walking it back. We're burning our careers at minimum, probably facing criminal charges. Do you understand that? I understand 8 people are going to vanish in 2 weeks if we do nothing. That's the only thing I understand. Knox was quiet for a moment. Okay, let's stop it. The call ended. I sat alone in that bar for another 20 minutes, drinking whiskey and staring at nothing, thinking about choices and consequences and the weight of knowing something true that everyone else denied. Then I drove back toward Fort Irwin, already planning the unauthorized mission that would either save 8 lives or end my career. Probably both. The desert stretched out under the stars, vast and empty and hiding secrets that shouldn't exist. Somewhere out there, something was waiting, something that took people and left only their absence behind. In 2 weeks, it would wake again, not if I could stop it. Dr. Angela Liu met us in a coffee shop in Reno 3 days later. She was younger than I expected. 38, with black hair pulled back severely and eyes that hadn't slept well in years. Knox had tracked her down through old academic contacts. Liu had been a rising star at NOAA's Atmospheric Research Division until her career detonated in 2018. "You're the ones asking about 77 Delta," she said, sitting down without preamble. "You understand that talking to me about this ends careers. Mine already ended. Yours are about to." "We understand," Knox said. "Tell us about the atmospheric distortions." Liu pulled out a tablet and opened a file. March through May, every 7 to 9 years, specific grid squares in the Great Basin show electromagnetic anomalies that shouldn't exist. The distortions appear at ground level, last anywhere from 30 seconds to 3 minutes, then dissipate completely. No weather pattern correlates, no seismic activity, just these bubbles of impossible physics. She showed us graphs, electromagnetic readings that spiked into ranges that looked like equipment malfunction. I documented 19 separate events over 5 years, submitted my findings for peer review. 3 days later, 2 men in suits visited my office and informed me my data was classified retroactively. I was fired, my credentials were flagged, and every university I applied to afterward mysteriously had no openings. "What do the distortions do?" I asked. "Based on the EM signatures, they create localized disruptions strong enough to interfere with neural activity. Human brains run on electrical impulses. If you put someone inside one of these distortions..." She trailed off. I theorized severe disorientation, possibly unconsciousness. "They did," Knox said quietly. "The military has been putting people in those zones for 30 years. Liu's face went pale. "How many?" At least 93 that we know of. There's something else, Liu said. The distortions don't just affect electromagnetic fields, they affect gravity. Localized gravitational anomalies measured in the milliseconds before my equipment was confiscated, as if something was pulling upward with immense force. Pulling upward, I repeated. How far? I don't know. My equipment couldn't track beyond the ionosphere. But the force vectors were consistent with vertical acceleration, straight up. Boot prints stopping mid-stride. No bodies, no blood. 8 heat signatures rising into the sky. They're not disappearing, I said slowly. They're being taken. Lifted. Can you predict when the next distortion will occur? I asked. She worked on her tablet for several minutes. Based on historical patterns and the last event on March 12th, the next window opens June 24th through 27th. Highest probability is June 26th, between 0200 and 0500 hours. 5 days from now. The new OP team would deploy June 25th, positioned perfectly to be present during the distortion window. We're going back, I said. Before the new team arrives, we're going to document what happens during a distortion event. That's suicide, Liu said flatly. If you're in the zone when it activates, we'll stay outside the active radius. How localized are they? Approximately 80 to 120 meters diameter, but the edges are unpredictable. Better our lives than 8 soldiers who don't know they're being sent to their deaths. I looked at Knox. You don't have to do this. I'm in, Knox said without hesitation. Liu stared at us both. You'll need better equipment. I still have monitoring gear designed to survive exactly this kind of event. She closed her tablet. I'm coming with you. No. Those are my conditions. You need me to interpret the data in real time, and I need to see this with my own eyes. She was right. Okay. We leave June 25th at 2200 hours. We document whatever happens, and we get out alive. What could go wrong? Knox said dryly. Everything. We reached the perimeter of Sector 77 Delta at 0145 hours on June 26th. The camp had been re-established. New tents, new personnel, same doomed location. We'd parked 3 miles out and approached on foot, carrying Liu's equipment in backpacks that weighed 40 pounds each. The night was cold and crystalline clear. We moved using night vision, staying low, communicating with hand signals. We reached our observation position at 0203 hours. A low ridge 800 meters from the camp, outside Liu's predicted distortion radius with comfortable margin. Liu immediately began setting up equipment: electromagnetic sensors, gravitational detectors, thermal imaging cameras, full-spectrum recording devices. Knox had binoculars trained on the camp. 8 personnel visible, normal operations. They have no idea. Can we warn them? Liu asked. No communications without revealing our position. And they wouldn't believe us anyway. 8 people going about their duties, unaware that in the next 2 hours, they might cease to exist. Liu's equipment began registering anomalies at 0237 hours. EM field fluctuations, she whispered. Building. This is consistent with pre-event patterns. The desert air felt different, heavier, like pressure building before a thunderstorm, except the sky was cloudless. At 0241 hours, the soldiers in the camp started reacting. Through the binoculars, I saw them looking around, touching their equipment, checking radios. One pointed at the sky. They felt it too. Something wrong in the air. EM spike increasing, Liu reported. Gravitational readings climbing. It's starting. At 0243 hours, The air above the camp began to shimmer. It wasn't visible to the naked eye at first, just a sense of wrongness, like heat distortion without heat. But through the thermal imaging, it was obvious. A column of disrupted air extending from ground level upward. Temperature inside the column was dropping rapidly, 60 degrees, 50, 40. The soldiers were panicking now. I could see them shouting. 2 ran for the Humvee. 3 others clustered near the command tent. The remaining 3 stood paralyzed, staring upward. Gravitational anomaly intensifying. Liu's voice was shaking. Force vectors indicating upward pull of... That's reading 50 Gs of upward acceleration. 50 times the force of gravity. At 0244 hours and 17 seconds, the soldiers began to rise. Not jumping, not climbing, rising. Their feet left the ground smoothly, as if gravity had reversed itself for them alone. The 2 running for the Humvee lifted mid-stride, boot prints stopping in the dust exactly like before. The 3 near the command tent rose together, arms reaching for each other. The 3 staring upward accepted their fate with eerie stillness. They rose slowly at first, 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet. Then the acceleration increased. Through the thermal imaging, I watched 8 human forms ascend faster and faster, pulled by invisible force into the night sky. 40 feet, 60 feet, 100 feet, 200. At 300 feet, they stopped being distinguishable as individuals. Just heat signatures getting smaller and smaller. At 500 feet, the thermal camera lost them. At 0245 hours and 42 seconds, the distortion collapsed. The shimmering air snapped back to normal. Everything returned to baseline as if nothing had happened. In the camp below, 8 pairs of boots sat outside tents. 8 cots held sleeping bags. 8 personal items remained exactly where their owners had left them. 8 people were gone. Knox was crying silently beside me. Liu had her hand over her mouth, her monitors still recording data that proved the impossible. I felt numb. Shock, rage, and helplessness warring inside my chest. "We need to leave," I said quietly. "Now." We packed in silence, started the long walk back. Behind us, the camp sat empty and intact, waiting for someone to discover the absence and write another convenient lie. We had proof. Thermal imaging, EM readings, gravitational data, video footage. Undeniable evidence of 8 people being pulled from the Earth by forces that shouldn't exist. Now we just had to figure out what to do with it. We drove for 3 hours before anyone spoke. Liu finally broke the silence. That was real. I watched 8 people get pulled into the sky by something we can't explain. Something the military has known about for 30 years. Knox added bitterly. 93 people. Probably more. I thought about the families. The parents told their children went AWOL. The spouses told training accidents. The children who grew up with lies instead of truth. "We release the evidence," I said. "Give it to journalists, post it online, send it to Congress." "They'll claim it's fabricated," Liu said. "And they'll destroy us for releasing classified information. Then we get destroyed. But at least the truth will be out there. At least maybe they'll stop sending people to those zones." Knox turned to look at me. "You understand, we'll go to prison. Our lives are over the moment we release this. Our lives are over anyway. We know too much. At least this way, the silence means something." It took 4 days to compile everything. Video footage, thermal imaging, EM readings, gravitational data, Liu's documentation, testimony from Knox and myself. We created redundant copies, stored them in multiple secure locations. On June 30th, 2021, we sent the evidence to 3 major newspapers, 2 investigative journalists, and uploaded encrypted files to multiple servers with deadman switches. The response was immediate. Within 6 hours, my quarters were raided by military police. Knox and Liu were arrested simultaneously. We were separated, interrogated, threatened with everything from treason to life imprisonment. But the evidence was already out. Within 48 hours, the story broke nationally. Military covers up disappearances in Nevada desert. Classified phenomenon claims nearly 100 lives. The Pentagon denied everything, called it a hoax, attacked our credibility, suggested Knox and I were suffering from PTSD. But the evidence was too strong. Other scientists began coming forward with similar data they'd been forced to bury. Families of missing soldiers started demanding answers. Congressional oversight committees launched investigations. The truth, once released, couldn't be recaptured. Knox and I were court-martialed, dishonorably discharged. She received 18 months in military prison. I received 24. Liu faced federal charges and received 30 months in civilian prison. We paid the price, but we stopped it. The program was officially terminated in August 2021. All remaining observation posts in anomalous zones were shut down. No more soldiers would be sent as bait. 93 people couldn't be brought back. But at least their families finally received truth instead of lies. I served my sentence at Fort Leavenworth. Got out in April 2023. Emma visited me twice, once to tell me she was proud of what I'd done, once to tell me she'd changed her major to journalism because someone needed to keep asking the hard questions. Knox was released 6 months before me. Last I heard, she's working as a private investigator in Colorado. Liu got out 3 months after me. She's teaching physics at a community college now. I live in a small apartment in Reno now. Work as a security consultant. Can't serve in the military anymore. Some days that's hard. Some days I wake up feeling like I traded everything for nothing. Then I remember 8 soldiers who didn't vanish on June 26, 2021, because the program was terminated before that date. 8 people who went home to their families. I think about the 93 who came before. Their names are public now, memorialized, honored, recognized. Their families have answers. Not good answers, but truth instead of lies. That's worth 24 months in prison. That's worth a dishonorable discharge. The phenomenon itself remains unexplained. Scientists are studying it openly now. They have theories: exotic matter, dimensional rifts, gravitational anomalies. Nobody knows for certain. What we do know, it happens in specific locations on predictable cycles. It affects living beings, particularly humans. It pulls them upward with immense force into something we cannot detect. Where they go, nobody knows. If you're watching this and you've ever been in the Great Basin Desert, pay attention to the air. If it starts feeling heavy, if temperature drops suddenly, if you feel pressure building, get out. Move away quickly. Don't look up. Don't try to understand. Just move. Because whatever reaches down from that distorted sky isn't something we can fight or negotiate with. It's something vast and incomprehensible, operating on physics we don't understand. And it's still out there. The program might be terminated, but the phenomenon continues. The zones are marked now, restricted, monitored. But the Great Basin is enormous, and monitoring isn't perfect. People still go missing in that desert. Most are found eventually. Some aren't. And sometimes, just sometimes, Those who aren't found left behind boot prints that stop mid-stride in the dust. Hit that subscribe button. Share this story. Keep the truth alive. Because the families of the 93 deserve to be remembered. Because the 8 who didn't vanish deserve to know someone fought for them. The military called them observation posts. Scientists call them gravitational anomalies. I call them what they are, hunting grounds for something vast and patient and utterly inhuman. The vanishing post at Sector 77 Delta is empty now. Dismantled, erased, officially forgotten. But I remember. Knox remembers. Liu remembers. And now you remember too. Keep their names alive. Keep the questions alive. The truth is always worth fighting for. Always.